Welcome everyone, this is Dr. Clark from the Center for Weight Loss Success, and on this podcast of weight loss surgery success, we're going to talk about those dreaded weight loss plateaus. What do we do about them? What should you look for? And stay tuned, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Again, this is Dr. Clark, and on today's podcast, we're going to talk about weight loss plateaus. We all dread them. They are going to happen. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, whether you've had surgical weight loss, medical weight loss, it doesn't matter. You're going to go through plateaus. So the question then is, okay, what do you do? What do you look for? And subsequently then, what can we actually do to break through these plateaus? Because almost everyone is going to want to break through and get a little further. Now, at some point, you need to really think of, is this my weight maintenance? Okay, now that's a slightly different topic. We're not going there today. I'm going to just assume that you're not where you want to be or not where you can be, and so subsequently we're at a plateau. Now, what really is the definition of a weight loss plateau? Now, sometimes we think that, gee, I haven't, my scale hasn't budged in a couple of days, therefore I'm in a plateau. It's like, that's not really a plateau. Really, a weight loss plateau, any weight loss plan, is generally you've been kind of doing the right things, and your weight is kind of stuck for a few weeks. So it's probably a good 2 or 3 weeks that nothing has happened. And so subsequently then, yes, then you can be in a weight loss plateau. But shorter than that, it's typically not something, you may just be a lull in the action, so to speak, and because your body does adjust, and as it adjusts, it's going to try to turn off weight loss. Your body doesn't want you to lose weight, so it's going to be trying to turn off weight loss, because literally, if you think about it, any weight loss plan, your body's going to kind of assume you're in a state of deprivation. And so it doesn't actually want you to lose weight. It's want to hang on to that energy source if you truly were in the famine. Okay, if most of us aren't in a famine, we're not anticipating a famine coming by, but we're just trying to work on weight loss. All right, so here we go. We're kind of in that weight loss plateau. What is going on? So what I encourage people to do is kind of get some, I'm going to say, questions to ask themselves about certain things. And I'm going to give you this list of questions, and then we're going to talk about, okay, what are some of the solutions to this? So some real questions to answer. Kind of question one there's, have you actually cut your calories too low? Probably another question is, okay, have you actually not cut them enough? Okay, but sometimes people actually cut their calories down too low. If your calories get down too low, your body's going to kind of shut everything down, go into kind of starvation mode, and you're not going to lose weight very well at all. So if you cut calories way down, now it's hard to put an exact number on that, but potentially if you're going lower than 1,000 calories and you're not in a true medically supervised plan, that's generally not the greatest thing. Now in a surgical plan right after surgery, you often will be in that 700, 800 calories, but long term that's not really the right answer either. So you do want to make sure you haven't cut calories too low. Another question is, are you getting enough water? Because this is probably one of the most common reasons I see initially in a weight loss plan, and especially after surgery when things start slowing down, is, are you getting enough water? Because if you start to get a little behind on your water, getting even a little bit dehydrated, your body will tend to hang on to everything, fat included. So kind of, yes, I really encourage people, push the water. Number 3 question to ask yourself is, how many carbs are you really taking in? Often, in this Center for Weight Loss Success, we do kind of talk about all the time of kind of restricting carbohydrate, keeping it to a lower level. Everyone's going to have a tipping point in their carbohydrate. You go above that tipping point and you struggle with your weight loss. So the question there is, are you above your tipping point? Well, if you don't know what your tipping point is, it's hard to really know that answer, but it is something we can figure out. It's not necessarily easy to do, but you can figure that out. So I'd really encourage you first is how many carbohydrates are you really taking in? Now, the way to answer the question is you got to write it down, which kind of is going to go back to one of our solutions here we're going to talk about a little bit is journaling. Okay, so write these things down, especially the carbohydrate. If you're going to measure one thing, count your carbohydrate. I don't know how many times I've said that over the past couple of years, and probably multiple times on these podcasts. Okay. Are you getting enough protein? Okay, now protein, kind of the opposite of the carbohydrate. The carbohydrate influences insulin. Okay, you want to keep insulin level as low as possible. I like to tell people that insulin is one of those hormones that we can't survive without. You've got to have some, but you want to survive with the absolute smallest number possible because insulin causes so many other problems. Weight gain is just one of them. Okay? That was the carbohydrate side of it. So the flip side is the protein side of it. Are you getting in enough protein? Because if you're not getting in enough protein, your body will preferentially break down lean body mass, slow your metabolism down. So sometimes it's just the point of, hey, you've got to bump that protein up, and subsequently then, all of a sudden I'm losing weight. Part of that is because protein manipulates other hormones too. Protein, it tends to be more satisfying, so we stay full for a longer period of time. But protein also increases growth hormone and glucagon. Glucagon is the opposite hormone of insulin. Insulin's telling your body store fat. Glucagon tells your body, hey, mobilize the fat. Well, growth hormone, as adults, okay, we don't make that much growth hormone, but we do make growth hormone. We can't survive without it. So if we can optimize what we do make, it's going to help you preserve lean body mass, keep your metabolism higher. So you want to make sure, yes, you're getting in enough protein. Another question to ask then is about exercise. One, are you doing it? Okay, that's probably number one question. But is your exercise too routine? Your body will get used to whatever exercise program you're doing. Okay? So if your body gets used to it, it doesn't get the same out of it as it did originally when you first started it. So if your exercise gets too routine, you don't get as much out of it. And again, the real trick with exercise is that you want to, again, preserve lean body mass, keep your metabolism high as possible. Exercise alone typically doesn't make you lose weight, but if you can preserve or build lean body mass, you're going to increase your metabolism and subsequently then it'll keep you on the weight loss track. Now, the flip side of exercise too routine is, are you actually exercising too hard? And that can also slow down weight loss. Inherently, that doesn't make sense, but it actually can do that because if we're exercising too hard, what tends to do is our stress hormones, cortisol, go way up. When cortisol levels go up, it's hard to lose weight because cortisol is one of those hormones that makes us, resistant to weight loss. Now, this was a survival mechanism kind of back in 10,000 years ago when we were stressed. Okay, typically our biggest stress was not being able to find food. Okay? And so when our bodies were stressed, you want to be resistant to losing weight. So stress typically makes us resistant to losing weight, which leads us really into the next question you need to ask yourself is, are you handling your stress all right? Because if you're stressed, if you're going through a very stressful event, whether it be a social stressor, at work stressor, a family stressor, whatever, a medical stressor, if you're not handling stress well, then typically it's going to make it harder to lose weight, and that can kind of turn on the plateau, so to speak. And finally, a couple other things to look at as far as just asking yourself, what about caffeine or artificial sweeteners? Now, inherently, both of those don't make sense in a weight loss plan of, turning off weight loss. But caffeine, some people are sensitive to caffeine because it will actually increase your stress hormones. It's a stimulant, and as a stimulant, it can increase stress hormones. Again, increased stress hormones make us resistant to losing weight. Or, okay, so you may want to be cutting back on that caffeine or potentially getting rid of caffeine. The second thing with caffeine is actually caffeine is a stimulant, can often stimulate appetite, which then makes it kind of harder to stick with the plan and subsequently then, are your calories too high? Right. Artificial sweeteners, slightly different there. Artificial sweeteners can turn off weight loss for a couple of reasons. One is that it tends to make us want sweet things. we get used to the very sweet taste, and artificial sweeteners tend to be so much sweeter, sometimes thousands of times sweeter than actual sugar is. So artificial sweeteners have no calories in them, but it trains us to want something sweet. And if it trains us to want something sweet, it potentially then makes it harder to stick with the diet plan. And again, look at, okay, have I actually been truly on my diet plan? The other thing with artificial sweeteners is that often it can actually increase insulin levels. Now again, inherently that doesn't make sense. But if you think about it, when we're taking something as artificial sweetener, again, it's much sweeter than what we would normally get with regular food. So the artificial sweetener and the sweetness you're tasting, your first response from your body is that it thinks that you're getting something that has a lot of calories in it. It's expecting those carbohydrate calories, those sugar calories, and then it doesn't get them. Okay, but it's expecting those sugar calories, so your body's all ready to get prepared for that. It releases insulin, and insulin's that hormone that would help you keep your blood sugars normal, because your body's anticipating that it's going to get a sugar load, and so it's going to release the insulin. Insulin then will actually somewhat drop blood sugar, which then increases cravings and hunger. But actually, with the insulin levels going up, insulin's again that hormone that tells your body store fat. So artificial sweeteners actually can kind of turn your body into fat storing mode, even though there's actually no calories in it. And our bodies typically will do whatever your body is told to do. And one of the biggest things that tells your body to do something is insulin. And a major thing it tells you to do is store fat. So potentially getting rid of artificial sweeteners then. All right, so now what do we actually do about this? We went through the questions to kind of ask yourself about, we've gotten that plateau. And now, okay, what are we going to do about these things? Kind of some of the answers to these questions, which I hit a little bit on during the questions themselves. But now we're going to go through some definitive answers here. Okay, for weight loss plateaus, what can you do? Well, number one, I encourage people to do is write it down. Go back to journaling. It is the basic thing, is because if you don't write it down, we'll never really figure out where the problem area is. You have to write down literally everything. When I say everything, I'm referring to what you're eating, what you're drinking, how much activity you're getting, and your exercise. You really got to make sure you're counting that carbohydrate and protein and the water. So you really want to watch all those things. Now, if they're all good, okay, then it's like, okay, how do we work with that? One is, again, I will still say, is push the water. Hydration, hydration, hydration. Okay? You also want to look at some other things. Sometimes going back to the beginning, and often at the beginning of your weight loss plan, people often did what is referred to as jumpstart diet. And basically it's kind of using some of the protein shakes, meal replacement shakes, and with that then you can kind of get that restarted. What it does by doing that, it gives you the good protein sources, so you know your protein is going to be high. It's typically going to be very controlled carbohydrates, so your carbohydrate is going to be fairly low. Your calories are also going to be fairly low, and it gives you exact numbers so that you know exactly what happens when you have this amount of calories, protein, carbohydrate. Okay? Also then look at the exercise part. The exercise part is when it's said, is it routine? So now it's time to change gears. You really want to make sure you're doing plenty of resistance training or weight training, and you can do weight training with body weight. Push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, squats. Great weight training just with body weight, so you don't actually need weights to do it. As well as kind of the best exercise for weight loss is really high-intensity interval training. And so I'll go back to a discussion I probably had in the past about the best piece of exercise equipment you can have is a heart rate monitor. And really kind of working, pushing your heart rate up to that kind of near max and back and forth, that high intensity interval training. And potentially even going into some of that anaerobic training where you actually go up to T max or your heart rate max, and subsequently then you're kind of crossing over into anaerobic metabolism, which gives you the best fitness gains. Now you can't do that if you're just starting on fitness, but if you are into fitness and you're good at that, this is something that can really get you going back on that weight loss plan. Obviously, as I mentioned, it's kind of ratcheting down that carbohydrate. Ratcheting down the carbohydrate, lifting up that protein. You can do it with food. Again, you have to count it. Then we can also start looking at like the over-the-counter products. Okay, there are lots of over-the-counter products out there, such as, and you'll hear them all the time advertised, from raspberry ketones, Garcinia cambogia, the bitter orange. There's lots of different things that are out there. Green tea. Green tea is actually one of the things that can actually be helpful. Green tea, it definitely can actually boost your metabolism a little bit. Not that much, but it can boost your metabolism about 4%. Now 4% potentially, if you're thinking a 2,000 calorie diet, that's about 80 calories. And if you're thinking of a 1,000 calorie diet, it's about 40 calories. So it's not really that much, but it sometimes is enough that, okay, this is going to start getting us back on that weight loss curve. Cayenne peppers. Okay, they sell it as a supplement or just using extra peppers, and they actually boost your metabolism as well. There's some evidence that probiotics, because it can change your intestinal flora. And part of our intestinal flora, if we can modify that into the better flora, often it can help with weight loss. So yes, probiotics can. Right. Then you do want to make sure you're doing the basics too. Are you taking your vitamins? Certain vitamins, we often think of B vitamins as our energy vitamins. So either doing B vitamin injections can potentially jumpstart a weight loss plan, or else actually doing high dose B6. B6, and I would encourage using the activated form of B6, which is pyridoxal 5-phosphate. We can do high dose B6. And if by doing that, it can actually bump up your metabolism some as well. Now, I say high dose, we're talking sometimes 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams. If you're buying B6 all by itself, it's usually 1 or 2 tablets there. Another potential thing over the counter is carnitine. Carnitine is kind of like an amino acid. What carnitine does, it helps mobilize the fat molecules into the mitochondria. The fat molecules, okay, that's what you're trying to get rid of. The mitochondria that are where that's your energy furnace. That's what's being burned for energy, and you actually truly convert it to energy. The fat itself isn't truly energy until it is broken down into ATP, which is the end product. That's the real money of energy. But that happens in your mitochondria. And carnitine helps mobilize fatty molecules into the mitochondria. It's kind of like, I like to think of that example of saying you have a coal, a steam engine. Okay, steam engine runs on coal, has a furnace, and you've got to get the fuel, it's either coal or wood or whatever, you've got to get it into the furnace. So it's on the train there, and the guy who's running the furnace there to run the train he's got to get the fuel into the furnace. And it's kind of like carnitine gives you a bigger shovel. And so it's easier to move the fuel into the furnace. So carnitine can do that. And typically you may need to take 1 to 2 grams of carnitine, but you can find carnitine at most health food stores. All right. So kind of those are some things you can do as far as working through weight loss plateaus. Went through a lot of information there. Weight loss plateaus are incredibly common. Literally, it happens to everybody until they're finally in maintenance. Okay, so literally, it's going to happen to everybody. You want to work through it. The last thing you want to do is just kind of throw in the towel. So typically, if you kind of go through those questions that I went through, as well as some of these solutions that I talked about, and I guess that's the final solution too, is that occasionally just you can use appetite suppressants. Appetite suppressants are, before I sign off here, we'll talk a little bit about that. Appetite suppressants, carefully regulated by the FDA, but if you're in a kind of a medical weight loss plan, surgical weight loss plan as well, if you're stuck and you're struggling, especially if you have cravings, potentially a cravings, appetite suppressants, I find it can be very helpful. They just have to be monitored very carefully, and obviously some people are not candidates for that. Kind of another thing to help with cravings is chromium. So if cravings is the reason that you're kind of stuck because you kind of break down and with these cravings, chromium can help with that. Chromium's a mineral, just like sodium, potassium, magnesium. They're minerals. We need minerals, okay, and so chromium is something we need. We just need tiny amounts. But if we take it in somewhat higher doses, and actually about 85% of the population is low deficient in chromium anyway. So if we take in a little higher doses, then it can actually help with cravings. So if you buy a bottle of chromium, which you can get at most health food stores, most pharmacies, we've got it here. But if you buy chromium, typically you do need to take it about 3 times a day. On the bottle, it'll say take 1 a day, and just that doesn't work. So you usually need to take it 3 times a day, sometimes 2 tablets 3 times a day. But that can help with cravings there as well. So anyway, lots of little solutions, and hopefully something there will help you with if you reach your weight loss plateau. So work through it. If you have questions, please let us know. That's what we do here. We're here to help. So if you want more information, go to our corporate website, which is cfwls.com. If you want to join me each week on a webinar where I talk about all different topics concerning weight and overall health, go to our Losing Weight USA website and sign up, join up there. The website is www.losingweightUSA.com. And just sign up there and you'll get access to me as well as a bunch of recipes, tips every single week. So lots of different benefits from that. So thank you all for listening. If you have questions, just give us a yell here at the Center for Weight Loss Success. I will talk to you on the next podcast. And remember, it's your life. Make it a healthy one. Take care, everyone.